Hello BookTube, I'm Jonathan, and today I'm going to be sharing 10 standalone sci-fi books I plan to read in 2026. Now recently I shared some sci-fi series that I'm going to be starting next year, including The Gap Cycle by Stephen R. Donaldson, which I'm going to be buddy reading with my friend Josh from Red Fury Books. So if you are interested in the sound of some grimdark space opera, check out the read-along schedule for that and join us. However, if you're thinking, Jonathan, I don't want to read another series. If I did, I'd pick up fantasy and read the 17-book series, The Empire of Grindledondle. Well, don't worry. If you are looking for something short, sweet, standalone, and sci-fi, you're in the right place. So let's get into the books I'm going to be reading, starting with Where the Axe is Buried by Ray Naylor. In the Authoritarian Federation, there is a plot to assassinate the president, a man who has downloaded his mind to a succession of new bodies to maintain his grip on power. Meanwhile, on the fringes of Western Europe, an experimental artificial mind is malfunctioning, threatening to set off a chain of events that may spell the end of the Western world. So this year I read Naylor's debut novel, The Mountain in the Sea, which combines some hard sci-fi as well as some interesting sci-fi concepts and philosophy. I really liked this book quite a lot, and I think if you were interested in any of those elements I mentioned, as well as octopuses, then you probably will enjoy it too. So it sounds like Where the Axe is Buried is set in a dystopian future, and it features some cyberpunk elements as well as artificial intelligence. So I'm looking forward to seeing the world which Naylor creates and how it kind of speaks to the direction that technology is possibly headed. I really liked the world building in The Mountain in the Sea, and I think maybe the plotting could have reached greater heights, but was still pretty good too. So if Where the Axe is Buried matches that, I'll be happy, and if it exceeds it, then this could become one of my favorite books. Up next, 11/22/63 by Stephen King. On November 22, 1963, 3 shots rang out in Dallas. President Kennedy died, and the world changed. But what if you could change it back? This is the question faced by English teacher Jake Epping when his friend Al divulges a secret. His diner storeroom is a portal to 1958. He enlists Jake on an insane mission to prevent the Kennedy assassination. So last year I finished the Dark Tower series by Stephen King, and I absolutely loved it. It incorporates a number of genres, but sci-fi is one of them, so I knew I definitely needed to read more from Stephen King, which I did actually do this year with The Long Walk, which I quite liked, and I need to continue with this time travel story, 11/22/63. It sounds like it combines quite a lot of interesting elements with the time travel and alternate history, and the JFK assassination is such an interesting moment in world history, and so how those elements combine together, I'm very much looking forward to reading. It's quite a long book. I think I might have promised short books at the top of the video. That was a lie. But Stephen King, his writing is very accessible. He's very readable. I'm sure that 800 will only feel like 600, okay? I'll get through this fairly quickly, and I'm looking forward to getting to know these characters. He's such a great character writer, and I'm looking forward to seeing what he does with time travel, one of my favorite sci-fi subgenres. Moving on, we have Downward to the Earth by Robert Silverberg. Okay, they did resemble elephants, it can't be denied, and that led many people to underestimate the Nildaror. But aliens should never be judged by human standards, as the company learned when it was sent packing. Now Edmund Gunderson has come back to settle old scores with the Nildaror, if he can even get them to acknowledge his existence. I'll be honest, that blurb sounds a little vague to me. We have some elephant-looking aliens, and that was about pretty much all I took from it, but that's enough for me. I'm in already, that sounds pretty interesting, and Silverberg, he does seem to be a conceptual, philosophical writer. He resides at the softer end of the sci-fi spectrum. I've only read one of his books, Dying Inside, and that follows a character who has the power of telepathy, but it is dwindling, and so it's kind of a character study. We kind of see this person dealing with, wasted potential. So I'm looking forward to seeing what concepts Silverberg explores in this one, what sort of questions he asks. Let me know if you read this one, how it compares to other Silverberg books. He's a writer that I'm intrigued to read more from. I do already own a couple of his books, and I'm going to be starting with Downward to the Earth next. And for our fourth book, we have Kindred by Octavia E. Butler. Dana, a modern black woman, is snatched abruptly from her home in California and transported to the antebellum South. Dana is drawn back repeatedly through time to the slave quarters, and each time the stay grows longer, more arduous, and more dangerous until it is uncertain whether or not Dana's life will end, long before it has a chance to begin. So this will be the fourth book I read from Butler. I had mixed reactions to Wild Seed, but I thought Parable of the Sower and Dawn were both very strong. Kindred is another time travel story, and when it comes to Butler books, I am expecting something that is easy to read, but not easy to experience. And what I mean by that is that the prose flows very well, it's quite simple, it's quite to the point, it's not dense, you're not going to get bogged down in the language. But the themes, the issues, what her characters go through is pretty heavy. There's a lot to process there. So I'm not expecting this to be an enjoyable read, but I am expecting it to be impactful. If you've read Kindred, let me know how you think it compares to other Butler books. And then we have The Escher Man by T.R. Napper. Endgame is a violent man, the perfect enforcer. But he's also a father and husband, haunted by the memories of his estranged family. Endor wants them back, and he wants out. But life in the Syndicate isn't one you can simply leave. Memory manipulation is the weapon of choice for the powerful, and Endor can't tell friends and enemies apart, can't be sure if he's a person or a tool. This year I read 36 Streets by T.R. Napper, and that book features cyberpunk cities in Vietnam, as well as virtual reality, drugs, martial arts, and it had just such a distinct vibe. And I really enjoyed exploring that world, as well as the characters, and I think it featured some really interesting themes. Now, this book, The Escher Man, takes place in the same universe, but it's not a sequel, it's a standalone, so you can pick up one or the other. I highly recommend 36 Streets, and I'm going to be reading The Escher Man next year. I hope it lives up to that. I'm pretty confident it will. I've heard some very good things, and I did also have the opportunity to talk to the author at T.R. Napper, and he gave me some of his favorite sci-fi book recommendations. We had a great sci-fi discussion, so if you haven't watched that video, go check that out for a fun cyberpunk and kind of all subgenres of sci-fi discussion. And just before we get to our next book, if you're looking for a place to chat about books and or post pictures of your pets, feel free to check out the Words in Time Discord server, which I will leave a link to in the description below. It's sci-fi and pet-friendly. Moving on, Hothouse by Brian Aldiss. Millions of years beyond our time, our Earth has long since stopped spinning, and giant flora have taken over the sunlit half of the motionless world. Here humans are among the very few animal species that still exist, struggling to survive against enormous odds. But they have become small and weak, and their numbers have dwindled to almost nothing. So this will be the second book I read from Aldiss. I read Nonstop, and I thought that was great. It has a fantastic premise, and I suggest going into that book blind. It has some really cool concepts, and I also really enjoyed the writing. I thought the prose was fantastic. So I know that I need to read more from Aldiss. And I've been trying to decide what to pick up next. It seems like Hothouse is one of his more well-known ones. However, everyone that I have spoken to about it says this book sucks. They say, Jonathan, you're not gonna like it. And yet I picked it up anyway. So if I don't end up enjoying this one, I have no one else to blame but myself. Maybe Brian Aldiss, but mostly myself. So let me know if you agree. Should I have picked up Hothouse? Does it suck? Hopefully not. I think it's going to be at least pretty good. If it's as good as Nonstop, I'll be very happy. And let me know your other Brian Aldiss recommendations. And for my next book, I have The Receiver by Seth Jaffe. Dr. Bram Gibney uncovers a mysterious source of particles hurtling through space. Chandler Mirren discovers a cryptic message in the journals of a renowned scientist. And Lieutenant Jack Avari finds himself entangled in a high-stakes game of international espionage. Between the three of them, Earth's fate hangs in the balance. So I've been told the pitch for this book is hard sci-fi. It combines the subgenres of First Contact along with the techno thriller. And the author of this book is a former NASA engineer. So the science, I'm sure, is going to be pretty accurate and the focus of the story. I'm looking forward to reading this one as it's supposed to appeal to fans of Arthur C. Clarke, Carl Sagan, Cixin Liu, and Andy Weir. So if it ends up being anywhere near the category of those authors, I will be one very happy hard sci-fi reader. Up next, The Female Man by Joanna Russ. Janine is a librarian living in a past that never saw the end of the Great Depression. Joanna is a 1970s feminist trying to succeed in a man's world. Janet is from While Away, a utopian Earth where only women exist. And Jael is a warrior with steel teeth and cat-like retractable claws. This is the story of when 4 alternate selves from drastically different realities meet. So this will be my first time reading Joanna Russ, which I'm looking forward to because she was a very influential new wave science fiction author. I've heard quite a bit about this book, as well as one of her other novels, We Who Are About To. And The Female Man is a science fiction masterwork, and it's going to be interesting to see what she does with these alternate realities, how she uses them to explore different social and philosophical issues. Let me know if you've read this one and if you think I'll like it. And for our second last book, Metro 2033 by Dmitry Glukovsky. The year is 2033. The world has been reduced to rubble, and cities have become uninhabitable through radiation. A few score thousand survivors live on in the Moscow Metro, the biggest air raid shelter ever built. A young man, Artyom, is given the task of alerting everyone to an awful danger. He holds the future of his station in his hands, and maybe the whole of humanity. So this book is technically not a standalone, it does have sequels, but from my research, I believe it has a self-contained story and can be read as a standalone, so I don't feel too guilty for including it on this list. This is a post-apocalyptic story that inspired a video game franchise, and while I haven't played that, I have heard both good things about the books and the games. Post-apocalyptic stories are, I guess, maybe not my favorite subgenre. I do love some post-apocalyptic books, but I feel like they do have a tendency towards feeling a little samey, so I'm looking forward to seeing what happens in Metro 2033 that makes it special, that makes it stand out, and hopefully makes it one of my favorite post-apocalyptic books. And for my 10th and final book, Slow Gods by Claire North. In telling my story, there are certain things I should perhaps lie about. I should make myself a hero, pretend I was not used by strangers and gods, did not leave people behind. This is the story of the supernova event that burned planets and felled civilizations. This is also the story of the many lives I've lived since I died for the first time. I've read one Claire North book so far, and that was The First 15 Lives of Harry August, which is a time loop story. I really enjoyed that one. I thought the ideas were great. I love a time loop story, and I think Claire North executed it really well. Slow Gods is a different type of story, although maybe there's some overlapping themes, as this is a space opera. And I've heard it's pretty ambitious, which I'm looking forward to, because I love big swings in a book, because even if there are some misses, it's those big hits that make it memorable. Those ideas that I keep coming back to and thinking about weeks, months, and years after having finished reading it. That is why I read science fiction, and that is what I'm hoping for in Slow Gods. And I was actually pretty confident that this was going to be at least pretty good because I went out on a limb and picked up the broken binding edition of the book. I'll throw up some pictures for you and you can see the nice sprayed edges, the foiled cover, as well as the signature inside. So either way, I'm going to be pretty happy displaying on this shelf, but I'll be particularly happy if I enjoy this as much or more than the first 15 lives of Harry August. So there you go, those are 10 standalone sci-fi books I'm going to be reading next year. If you've read any of them, let me know your thoughts on them in the comments, and those which you haven't, let me know if any of those sounded interesting and whether you'd like to read along with me. Hope you enjoyed this video. If you did, smash or just gently click the subscribe button, and if you really enjoyed it, consider checking out the perks of becoming a Patreon member, where you can become one of my robots, androids, or cyborgs, like Nima, A New Eden, Half Ogre, Zakawe, Samil, Colin, and next year's Bamsis. And you can find more sci-fi content over here.